Hey, what's up, Charles? This is a quick demo video for you. Maybe not so quick, but a demo video for you for your Korbanth and Shadowfoil props Luke V2. This is installed with the Proffie V3 that you asked me for. There is a lot of things going on with this saber. It's very cool. It's all made out of steel, so it's pretty hefty. You've got, of course, the reveal crystal chamber here. So this is what came with the kit. All right. It has two different crystals in here, so I wired these up separately. They are both separate from each other and separate from the blade. Now, I know you like to do your own font things, but I got the LS6 font on here just to demo the saber because I thought it went really well with it. And then I've got my own font on here. So I will leave my own font on here. If you own the LS6 font, or if you can show me proof of purchase on that, I'll go ahead and I'll leave that one on here. Okay, this saber breaks down into several different parts. Let's talk about how to get the chassis out. All right, so first thing you want to do is come over here and take off the pommel. When you do, be careful, because when you loosen this guy back here, this middle piece becomes free floating. That is so that you can clock it, but we'll talk about that here in a second. All right, so we'll take that off, two pieces. Before you take the chassis out, come over here and take the grenade section off. All right, so just go ahead, loosen that up, and unscrew it and take it off. We're going to talk about the grenade section also. But when you get that all the way unscrewed, you can just slide that right off. Now, I didn't do it on this, but this is meant for a chassis retention. All right, you can screw that down if you like. It'll lock the chassis in place. But like I said, I didn't do it. I have it loose, but that's what that's for. All right. When you go to take the chassis out, you want to take the crystal chamber and push straight back. Don't twist it. Push it straight back. All right, it's a little bit tight. It'll go like that, and then you can kind of just push it right out. And then we'll talk about your chassis, and then we'll talk about the saber. All right, so this is, of course, the crystal chamber that I incorporated my chassis design around. So you've got that. You've got your two plunger switches here. You'll have to line those up, and I'll show you, or your two tactiles. I'll show you how to do that. You've got your Proffie V3 here. There is a kill switch right in front of it, but you will need to lift the board up to do any config changes. All right, that's something I couldn't get away from. Just go ahead and lift the board up. You can pop it up like this, do whatever you need to do, and then snap it back down. It is a pretty tight snap fit down in there. You shouldn't have any issues, but if you keep doing that over time and you feel like it's not fitting as tight as it used to, use a little bit of E6000 on either side of the board and hold it down. It'll hold it just fine. All right. You've got a Smuggler's Outpost 28mm Elite speaker back here. And then you have a removable battery. So we'll pop this out real quick. You pop it out with your finger, and there's your battery compartment. So kept it nice and clean, no wires. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put the battery back in it. I do suggest taking the sticker off of your battery. And then please also remember, spring side is the negative side of the battery. All right. So we'll put that in there. You've got your Shadowfoil props PCB in here. A few things that I really like about this saber that you don't typically see on a Luke saber is, number one, it came with PCB holders. So I had this black PCB holder is made out of Delrin. It came with a kit. That was very handy. When you come over here and you take this grenade section off from your emitter, it came with a PCB holder for a blade side connector. Now, something that you do have to watch out for, anybody who's installing this, is made specifically for a stock blade side connector. I typically use the ones that I get from Osh Park. Those didn't fit. Fortunately, I had a stock laying around, so that's what I put in here. It was made for that. All right, so that was very nice, and that just screws in, so I didn't have to glue that in. I glued the PCB to the holder, but then you take the holder and you just screw it in. So that was very cool. And same with the main PCB holder. Now, this is a Carl Chen V4 lit connector. All right, and that PCB holder also is made out of Delrin, came with the kit, and it screws in. So it made installing that very nice. I didn't have to make my own holders. They were made specifically for the saber. The reason you take this off, right, you can either take the grenade section that has the cutout for your crystal reveal, and you could screw it on like we had it, Or in your kit also comes a regular grenade section with no cutout, and you can simply, you can screw that on if you don't want to have the crystal revealed when the saber's running. I'm going to put the reveal on it for now just because I like to show you the crystals. But these are the exact same size, same everything. So it was very nice to get this because when I originally saw this saber come out, I thought it was just the cutout only. All right, but so that's what we've got there. We'll go ahead and we'll screw this back on. We'll lock that down nice and tight. You have your emitter piece right here. Right now I have the piece that takes the blade. So you put this on when you want to put a blade in because it gives you that little bit of extra blade depth. But in your kit will be this piece right here, and this is the piece that you put in, obviously, when you're not going to use a blade. So this is basically the emitter cap or your blade plug. All right, so we'll put that off to the side. We're going to take this and put this back onto the saber. So we'll just screw this on carefully. And we'll talk about one more thing about this saber I really liked that I have never seen on a Luke saber before is there are actual plungers underneath this card. All right, so instead of having to go through and make my own tactile switch holder, I took that off right there and zoomed in on it. You can see one plunger right there, and if I slid it all the way off, there's another one. So to actually have these plungers incorporated into this control box was a very nice touch, and it was something that helped with the install as well. All right. That being said, the chassis was a little bit unique to install because if you can see, this is the top of the board. And then if you look down here, my battery is cockeyed, right? It's actually the board or just however you look at it. But I had to make my board shelf a little cockeyed from the battery compartment, which is something I've never done before, so that I could fit these switches in and then also make sure that when it was lined up inside of the inside of the saber and you locked down on this chassis retention, that this piece was not screwing down on the actual battery. It had to hit the chassis. So there was a little bit of figuring that out to make sure this didn't touch the battery. All right, so that's what we've got there. Go ahead and we're going to put this halfway in the saber before we flip the switch. Now there's nothing to clock the chassis except for you can see this rail that I've got, where your switches are, but that rail is wider than your actual tactile switches. So you will need to pay attention when putting this in and line this rail up right with your control box. All right. Let me get it in a little bit and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now, if you can imagine a line going over here from your plunger switches straight over to your tactile switches, that's what I mean. So you want to line that up just right. If you don't have it lined up, it won't push in all the way. So if you got at least this far, then you did it right. But before you push it in all the way, you can come over here and you can flip your switch.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And now I'm just going to push it in all the way. All right. I've got your crystals each doing something different. It may be a little bit hard to see on camera, but one has a pulse and one has a heartbeat. If we turn it on right now, they go solid. The front is your power. The back is your auxiliary. They do react to auxiliary. And of course, it's lighting up your main PCB as well. All right. We'll go ahead and turn that off. And lastly, let's talk about your pommel. Before we do, this is a piece that came with your kit as well. It's made to hold your crystal chamber in place if this was going to be a static prop. I'm going to go ahead and throw this away because it doesn't fit in there anymore. And then unfortunately, it was a bit damaged in shipment. But it's not something that you need anyway, so I'm just going to throw this away. All right. Now with your pommel, you have two different pommels. You have this guy, which is solid for just display purposes. And of course, you've got this one right here that is slotted for sound venting. So that's what the outside looks like. That's what the inside looks like. And you just slip this piece on here like this. Now, if you're going to keep this piece that has the sound venting, since you have this installed, when you get it, I would put some heat tape right here, and then slide this on so it's nice and tight. And then after you take this and you screw it on, which we can do just like that, and you find out where you like this clocked, then you can, that tape will hold it in place. All right, so, but for now we'll just tighten this up. If you tighten it enough, it does stay in place anyway, but that tape would help it some. All right, so your crystals have timed out, but when we hit power, they'll power back on. Saber sounds really good. Nice smooth swing. Auxiliary. And then my sound font I made red just so you'd have some color contrast. Apologize. So that's what the crystal chamber looks like with some red. You can kind of see how, you know, the top one is a heartbeat and this one down here is pulsing. It's a little bit easier to see it when it's on red. But again, front plunger for power. They're a little bit tight, so when you go to press them, don't be soft about it. Just go ahead and, you know, give them a press. We'll put a blade in here. This is set up for a 1-inch diameter Neopixel blade. You got to back all of those blade retention screws out though. You have 3 of them. Something I didn't do before this video. I'm just going to lock down 1 blade retention for now, but you do have 3 that are evenly spaced apart. Depending on how hard you want to swing this thing, I would probably use all 3. All right. This saber, or this blade, has been sanded and it's a little bit loose. So if you have a brand new blade, it'll probably fit in here perfectly. All right. But of course, my font has a red unstable. And then if we went back to the Luke
Skywalker,
this will be green. We can focus in here. Apologize. And then, dude, I've done that like 80 times and it gets me every time. If you want to play your sound font, or yeah, your sound track on your font, it's a long press on the power. Right. And another long press to turn it off. Just like that. So, that's how the saber works. You got good flash on clash. There is a copy of the config file on the SD card. You'll notice that each font has 3 blade styles and they go in this order. First blade style is your main blade. The second blade style is the upper crystal, and the third and final blade style is the crystal right here, right before he switches. All right. So we'll go ahead and we will break this back down and just find whichever retention screw I use to lock this blade in. Pop our blade out. Don't try to grab it, the chassis from the speaker and pull it out that way. I will tell you why. Everything is a tight fit. So just don't come in here and ripping this out. It's probably not going to be a good time. Just take the time really to come over here and unscrew the grenade section. All right. There's just a few screws or just a few threads, and then come over here and, you know, push it straight out. You don't even have to take it all the way out if you want to. You can get it this far. Oops, sorry. This far, and then you can come over here and flip the kill switch. So, you know, I can't flip it on right now because we've passed the tactile switches. There we go. You can flip it off from here, and it kills power. All right, but we'll pull it straight out. This crystal chamber, I did use a little bit of glue to keep it in place. I thought I would be able to use these grub screws because it did look like there were holes and they were threaded all the way through. So I have a 3D printed spacer kind of coming up. On the top of that spacer, it's holding the Neopixel for that bottom crystal, but it was also enough for these screws to bite in. I wasn't getting the amount of bite that I liked. I did get a little bit, so I used these, but I used a little bit of glue in conjunction with that. I just don't think it's a good idea to be grabbing onto this backside and yanking it out of the saber, push it from the crystal chamber, if that makes sense. All right, but when you're done, you can come over here and pop the battery out just like that. And that is basically your Luke V2 with Proffie V3 Let me know if you have any questions, and I will get this out in the mail to you tomorrow. Thanks, man.